It was 2020, middle of COVID, the world was silent, and I was in deep conversation with my Buddhist business mentor, and it wasn't anything specific that he'd said. I just felt the need to thank him sincerely. I suppose it was for what he'd helped me to accomplish. I was now the managing director of a global edtech SaaS business, living in London in a luxury apartment, driving a Maserati, dating a beautiful model, and traveling around the world. But this isn't what I was thankful for. For the first time in my life, I felt free. I just felt light, pure love. And the craziest thing is, a few months later, I left this company to start my own business, which just made 400K per month in the last couple of months. And this is the story of why, but it's not a rags to riches story. I'm going to be sharing parts of my journey that most people can't share, the stuff that they need to keep in the dark. I'm going to be sharing how I overcome my struggles with addictive behavior, chronic pain, just stress, as well as how I sacrifice my own happiness for success, how I sacrifice relationships with my girlfriend, with my parents to build the business that I have now. But before I get into that, I need to tell you where and kind of how all of this started. My journey starts in the northeast of England, Newcastle, which is renowned for football, drinking, factories, and I suppose just being a bit rough. And to give you insights to what I was born into, my dad had me as an only child because he felt he could literally only afford one child. And in hindsight, I'm grateful that I was raised with a lot of love, but not a huge amount of money, because 2 out of 3 millionaires are self-made. But before I knew that, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed about where we'd shop. There's this place called Netto that had these like horrible yellow bags. When my friends would come around after school and stuff like that, I would try to hide the bags because I knew I'd get bullied for being cheap. And I kind of resented my parents for that. And I feel kind of stupid saying that now, but they were scared of spending money, a belief that I kind of picked up and I had to rewire. Like, we couldn't afford Nikes from the main stores, so we used to get last seasons from the discount stores. So as a kid, not really understanding money, I genuinely thought we didn't have enough money to buy shoes. But it wasn't the shoes that made me ambitious. It was when my mum got her purse stolen, and I remember sitting on her bed looking at this kind of old purse that she had to use now, thinking we'd lost all the money in the purse that had been stolen. I didn't really understand money at the time. I thought we had none left, and on that day I swore to myself that my parents would never ever have to worry about money again. So my drive did come from a fear of economic insecurity, and that drive was powerful, but it was also limiting. And my mum was offered promotions at work, which she never took them because she had to travel and she didn't want to be away from me. And I begged her to take them. But my parents understood something that I did not understand at the time, and that was love is more important than money. And I suppose where I'm from, being rich is not really celebrated, but I had a burning desire for money, and people around me could see it. My best friend Connor growing up would tell all of the kids in class, Jordan's going to be a millionaire. But growing up, I just wanted to fit in and to be popular. So I joined the football team, but I didn't feel like I fit in. I actually just felt bored. And this kind of behavior of doing things to fit in or look cool repeated into my early 20s. And it was a burning desire to feel significant. And at school, I was a little bit slower than the other kids, and the teachers told my parents that I was going to struggle with exams. But all school focuses on was how to pass exams, not how to learn and apply that. And no one in my family was in business. But I knew from a young age that I was going to make something of myself. And I wanted to be that one person who could change it, that one person in my family who could be a businessman. And I wanted more than the normal life. See, everyone around me was just living the same day in, day out. It was like Groundhog Day, and I needed something more. I was hungry to succeed. I left school at 16 because I wasn't making money there. Mind you, I got all A's, much to the teacher's surprise. So I could have went to college, and my parents offered, they said, we'll try to support you financially and stuff like that, but there was no chance. I didn't want to take any money from them. So I posted my resume, my CV through loads of local tradesmen's doors and applied for hundreds of jobs online. I ended up landing this fast track management, kind of like an apprenticeship scheme at Nissan, but it was working in a factory, and it was where my dad worked. And where I'm from, working where your dad works is quite a normal pathway. It might even be the story for you. And when I got this job, I remember my dad lecturing me about, you need to start a pension. And I said, Dad, I do not need a pension. I'm going to be a millionaire. So he turns around and says, son, that's a pipe dream. And we laugh at this now, but at the time we'd argue. The dream versus reality was far away from me becoming a millionaire. I was making like 800 per month, and the CEO position was at least 40 years away. And I worked hard, but I hated the corporate BS. It just felt like so much cap potential. I felt like I was dying before I'd even started living, and seeing so many old men with dreams that they'd never chased. I thought one day I could be CEO, but I realized it wasn't even worth it when I found out the head of the UK UK was only making a couple of 100,000 per year. And I knew deep down, this could not be me. And 99% of people are living like this, living like trapped and feeling like they're in a physical cage, but it's actually a mental cage. Everyone's wanting more, but they don't believe that it's possible. And most people see people with money, they think they started out like this. And most people who are in good shape or peaceful or happy, started this way, but they didn't. They had to unlearn a lot of bad programming from the world and people around them and learn it again in the right way. And it's a journey, but I hated thinking someone else was in charge of my success and my future. I was just constantly frustrated at the thought of being capped and trapped, and I wanted more life. So when I turned 16, I joined the local bodybuilding gym, and this gave me access to new and very interesting characters, to say the least. And that's why I met my new best friend, who turned into a brother to me. He was older than me, he was jacked, like tattoos everywhere, necks, hands, but he saw my burning desire to get rich. So he immediately took me under his wing. He invited me out of town that Sunday evening. We went to one of the most exclusive nightclubs in Newcastle at the time, Tuptup Palace. I tried to get in there once before, but the £300 doorman just snatched my ID off me. It was the place to be in Newcastle, you know. Snoop Dogg used to go, 50 Cent when they were in town. So fortunately this time I actually got let into the club, and I was introduced to a guy called Kyle. He was also jacked, tattoos everywhere. He ended up becoming a reality TV star, and he invited me to start working with him in nightclubs, which I thought was pretty random at the time. And I was so excited, like I said yes, like an excited woman being proposed to. But I was like, look, there's one problem. I'm 16. But Kyle didn't care at all. He said to meet him the next day on Newcastle's main street, where he would introduce me to his boss. So Monday morning comes, I'm standing in the middle of the street, waiting to become a club promoter, thinking, what the hell am I doing here? I'm not even supposed to be in clubs, never mind being working in clubs. All my friends are still at school, and I work in a factory. Then this bright red Audi A5 just speeds down the street with a diamond skull glistering in the dashboard. And there I was thinking, Kyle's the coolest person in the world, until this guy jumps out the car, did this kind of signature double hair flick kind of thing, looking like a hybrid between Leonardo DiCaprio and Captain Jack Sparrow, something like that. And his name was Cristiano, and he went on to be my first mentor. So a few minutes later, I found myself sitting in this meeting in the king booth of this empty nightclub with this kind of stripper pole in front of us, thinking, these are two of the coolest people ever. Cristiano was talking about, you know, throwing dwarfs from the ceiling, hosting Jason Derulo at the next party. And I'm sitting there thinking, 16-year-old Jordan, man, when I grow up, I want to be exactly like these guys. Funny, handsome, successful, have all the women. They seem to have everything that I wanted. And that's how the first part of my journey started. So my life now, during the day, I was being a normie, and on the nighttime, I was running nightclubs. 70, 80 hours work week were just the normal, and I loved it. I think entrepreneurship is more celebrated now. That wasn't 12 years ago, you know, and especially from where I'm from, it's like, get a job, work hard at the job, get a promotion, buy a house, you know, like all these things, right? And a month before I turned 18, a new general manager takes over the club, who was not as cool as Cristiano Kyle, and fired me for being under 18. And I couldn't believe it. Like literally, as soon as I turned 18, I got sacked from the nightclub job, and I quit the job for life in the factory, and I never stepped foot in a factory again. So overnight, all my responsibilities were gone, and I had the freedom that I suppose that I was looking for. So within 3 weeks, I ended up launching my own event, where I got paid a percentage of the door entrance for the fees that were taken on entry. And I did this with help from a new mentor, and mentors have really been key for the development within my life, because I naturally was making a lot of mistakes at the time. I needed guidance by someone who'd been there, done it, and was a bit older, and I still do that now. It's super valuable for me. And when I went to launch the club, people were actually sharing memes on Facebook about how it wouldn't work, but we actually went on to run killer events, host parties all around the northeast of England. My biggest event was over 3,000 people. It was crazy, you know, like big queues, people shouting, "Ah, Jordan, let me in for free," and stuff like that. It was brilliant, and it really educated me on the basics of business, marketing, sales, which has served me super well today. And with all the events that I was hosting, I was gaining like slight local popularity, and I was actually invited onto a TV show by the producers of MTV, which I ended up respectfully declining. It was actually even a surprise to my parents at the time, and it's because I started to see that the party scene had just become a major distraction for really where I wanted to be and who I wanted to be. And what really woke me up is the nightclub that I was running at the time, someone got shot with a shotgun, and I was like, man, like this is crazy stuff. And deep down, I was still the kid with aspirations of being a respectable business person. I didn't want to be famous for partying and drinking. I wanted to make my parents proud and make a lot of money. So I quit the party scene within a week and just changed my life instantly. I spent 1 year learning recruitment while studying an online management degree, so I was back to kind of normie life living, and it just made me realize how useless the traditional education system is. I actually learned more about business in nightclubs than in classrooms. Like paying for the experience versus getting paid. During my time in recruitment, I did well. I went on to win some awards, and I met a multi-millionaire, and I was impressed by his wealth, swimming pool in the house, double Range Rover, McLaren, and I was kind of blinded by the money because that's what I wanted. And I went into very early stages of setting up a joint venture with him. I wanted him to mentor me. I did this over a couple of months, but I actually just realized how unethical he was, and I didn't ignore the red flags. It was like Chinese New Year. There was too many red flags to ignore. That was actually, looking back, it was the worst couple of months of my life. I just felt terrible. Like I was just so often misaligned. I did want money, but I realized that I wanted money for freedom to not have to work with unethical people. So I wasn't going to sacrifice what I actually wanted just for nice cars and things. So yet again, I quit. I'm really confident now in quitting and not doing things that don't align with who I am, because you have to let go of some things to let other things emerge. And what happened next proved it to me. So it's 2017 now, I'm 21, and a friend I knew from nightlife, he called me on a Sunday evening. He said, look, I know you're in the process of setting up the recruitment agency, but before you do that, you need to come down and meet this guy in London. He's an Irish entrepreneur. He's had a few big exits under his belt. He's sold a few companies. He's got a company now. He's looking to build a new one. He's in London for a few days. He's like, I think it's an opportunity of the lifetime for you. And this Irish entrepreneur turned out to be my business mentor, and really a key figure in my life and growth. And his name's Brandon. And I'll definitely be interviewing him for this channel. See, I was so hungry to sit at the big table with the big boys in the real business world. So Monday morning, I put on my best pinstripe suit, yellow tie. That meeting changed my life. When I got there, I met Brandon. He brought everyone into the room, and he kind of had his business plan up on the wall, and he presented it to me pretty high level. Straight away, I just knew that he didn't care, not one bit, but not in a lazy way. Like, he was already rich and confident, and he just loved the game of building businesses. And that, I think, is pretty rare to find. I had my business plan in my back pocket ready to go too, but I actually never got the opportunity to share that on that day, because after the pitch, he said, look, Jordan, do you get this? I was like, yeah, and not thinking really anything of it. So he did like a little blow of intimidation, grinned, he's a cheeky guy. And he said, okay, well, pitch it back to me. So I did. I stood in front of the entire room full of his team and pitched back his own business to him. My heart was literally in my mouth. I wasn't used to presenting to even this many people in this sort of environment at that time. And that was the exact moment we decided to work together. And I suppose I learned a big lesson on that day. Quick decisions, be decisive, and use your intuition. And we agreed to have a formal meeting in his house 1 week later when he got back from the States. So I'm sitting, picked up from the airport in this S-Class Mercedes, being driven to the house of this wacky Irish entrepreneur I just met a week ago, just about to experience a moment that'll rewire and change my mind forever. But I'm thinking, how did I get here? I still couldn't believe it. Like, we just literally met a week ago, signed a deal for me to take over the UK operations. A week later, I'm in Ireland to kick things off. So the S-Class glides towards the gates of this mansion. And look, I'm a working class lad from Newcastle. I'm already happy being picked up by an S-Class Mercedes. I had a Mercedes AMG at the time, which I thought I was doing okay, but this was like real wealth. This wasn't making money, this was wealth. So he greets me at the door with this zen-like grin that I remember that he had in London. He's like, Jordan, how's the flight? So I say back, grand, thanks, how are you? With a big smile, practicing my Irish. And we sat and talked for hours. I started to piece together his life and realized that he was quite similar to me in many ways. I started to identify. He wasn't from money. He kind of made it in his own way. He'd made a lot more than me, but he'd done what I wanted to do. He actually worked for his dad's company as well, the company where his dad worked in, but he ended up doing a management buyout of that company. But he also had a lot more business experience than me. He knew how to build and sell a business. What surprised me the most was not this business acumen or success, it was how genuinely upbeat and happy he was. The S-Class, the mansion, the stories, all of the business exits, the achievements, it was intimidating. But as soon as, I got talking, that all went away, because he was just once exactly the same as me, maybe the same as you. Growing up working class, you get the idea in your mind that people who are rich are all stuck up and exploiters, which I knew was BS by now, but meeting this guy just changed like everything, because I realized that I could be a nice guy, assertive, and make lots of money. And he just seemed to embody the truth that I'd been searching for, that I wanted, but didn't really understand yet. So overnight, I literally left for London to make some real money and again, live more life. And Brendan is actually the same age as my father, and he ended up becoming a second father figure to me, and he became not just my business mentor, but a life mentor. And I paid him back with savage hard work, leading 150 employees and led the whole business development for the company. And we did that in our own way. We didn't give all the equity away to sharks. We didn't sacrifice who we were. And we loved the game. We closed deals. We built the business. And whilst we traveling around the world, we did close deals with some big businesses, likes of Jaguar Land Rover, the Adecco Group, the Wozniak's organization, I positioned our services as kind of like a partnership model instead of suppliers, which was very different, and no one was really doing this in like edtech formal education. So we had zero competitors. This is an edtech company where the valuations are insane and kind of weird to position as a partner. We even secured a global deal with Microsoft. Talk about being underqualified. I'm 21 doing this with not that much experience and also no qualifications, but I just kept things simple and worked harder than everyone else and continued learning. I learned so much personally and professionally firsthand off working with leaders and just having a group of killers around me at all times. And this is when I started to see the lone wolf mentality that you see online is BS, because every CEO, every big real person is surrounded by their brothers. But most people, I think at the start, want to be CEO to be seen as significant. So when they become CEO, they start treating everyone else like the poor people. And this is why most people can't successfully grow business, because you actually need to bring great people on your team and empower them, not put them down and you to be the really smart one. I experienced a huge amount of variety between the ages of 16 and 21, but my real personal growth come between the ages of 21 and 26, and that growth period made all the difference in my life, because to achieve what I've went on to do, I needed to grow more as a person. And as I matured more and more, I started to get much deeper into mindfulness and self-inquiry, and I started to ask much deeper questions and started touching on basic principles of mindfulness. I did some practice with Brendan, but because I was working so much, I never got as deep into it as I wanted to. It was New Year, and over Christmas and New Year, business kind of slows down, so I took a Ayurvedic retreat to India at the end of 2019, and it was to explore the self even more. The world and the distractions slowed down for me for the first time again in years. I realized that I still wasn't where I truly wanted to be. It's kind of a weird experience when you cut off all distractions and mobiles and stuff like that, like the dopamine detox that people talk about. But being with nothing but your mind for a week straight, you discover part of yourself, your desires and pains, that's been suppressed. It's very easy to do in day-to-day life. And for me, I still wanted to be the CEO, but it wasn't for the title. I realized it was for the freedom, the ability to wake up every single day, do whatever I want, and to never, ever, ever have to worry about what I'm spending, to take care of my loved ones in every single way that I can. And this is why I was working so hard. But I suppose I lost a bit of sight of that, got a bit caught up in working so hard in the fast-paced life. In love with this new clarity I was feeling at the retreat, I decided to remove the distractions. And one of the more significant steps that I took, I decided to stop drinking for a month, dry January. For me, drinking was somewhat pleasurable. I drink to relax, drink with clients, drink with team, drink with friends, drink with family. It was a massive part of my life, but I realized it was preventing me from living the life that I truly wanted to live. And I also come from a long line of alcoholics, and drinking is very much ingrained in the culture that I'm in. It's the norm, and it's the norm within business as well. And I wouldn't identify as an alcoholic or even alcohol dependent, but when I did stop drinking, life got better. And I realized that I could still have fun in social environments without using mind-altering substances. I see alcohol and drugs as an enhancer or a calmer. So when I drink, I could relax easier and enjoy situations. But this was super artificial, and I wasn't really taking the time that I needed to fully relax and be. And the highs of a substance always come with a low and the consequences to follow. So when I stopped drinking, I became incredibly consistent, and I was just a lot mentally sharper, and I made much more money because my mind was clear, so I was just making better decisions. And dry January led to the next month sober, the next month and the next month, and now I've had 4 months completely sober. So I got this point where I built a life that I loved in a sense. I had the luxury, I had the apartment in London, the Maserati, the model girlfriend. We were getting close to selling the business. We just had a massive valuation. I was flying around the world, opening up offices in Dubai, New York, LA. Everything was going well. Boom, and then COVID hit. And this changed most of the world, for a moment or two. So I went from a life of constant stimulation to being locked down, and my world totally slowed down again. But this time it wasn't my choice. I decided to go back to Newcastle for a little bit to stay with my family for a few months. And surprisingly, this radically moved the needle again. I ended up spending hours playing chess with one of my best friends for 10 years, a guy called James. He was making killer money, way more than I expected. And the strangest thing about it, I was working twice as many hours as him. He was making over 400k a month, and I was not making that at the time. One night we were playing chess and we were watching Succession after, and I ended up staying at his house, and I was up at 6 a.m. on calls. We were going to work from his office the next day. He came down, strolling down at 9 a.m. with a coffee in his hand, super relaxed. He kind of looked at me and he was like, "Oh man, I remember those days." I was like, what? What changed? How was he making so much money? So when I started to understand what he was doing, which wasn't just an agency now, and we, were really kind of enjoying the conversation and how we thought about business, and we had similar values on business. So we started to explore a partnership. And what was weirder you know, I was exploring a partnership, but I was a managing director of the company, which objectively had more enterprise value. But he was bringing in way more than me still. So that leaves only one way he was earning more than I was. He was leveraging his skills in a much better way. So I just dropped the ego, started questioning, you know, how can I learn from this? So instead of being envious, I turned that envy into inspiration and took action, and this kind of sparked something special. And this might be an insight that can help you. Your skill set gets you started, but the vehicle that you leverage those skill sets in is going to make all the difference. And I looked back at James's cycle. First, he was employed in an agency, doing well by standards of the norm, but didn't really have the freedom. Started his own agency, which leveraged his skill sets better. That's what gets you in the top 1%. Then you can make mad money by partnering that vehicle in a partnership style model. So you're not transactionally servicing clients anymore. You're actually partnering with businesses to help them grow using the knowledge and experience that you've delivered during the services. The deeper I go into business, I notice this as a pattern. Employment, where you leverage time for money, then you serve clients in your own business, develop more skills, then you partner with businesses where you leverage your skill sets, knowledge and experience. A pathway that many successful entrepreneurs take. And that way, the business is near infinitely more scalable. So with this newfound knowledge, coupled together with the deep inner work that I've been working on, I had to make the most gut-wrenching decision of my life. I quit my managing director role, which, okay, well, that's not that big, Jordan. You were going to go on to make more money anyways. But I was leaving Brandon, and he was my mentor. And at that time, he was one of, if not the most important person in my life. But before I get into what exactly caused me to quit, I have to share something a little bit embarrassing. See, James was very into this whole making money online space. And to be honest with you, I thought it was a massive scam. The Tai Lopez types just put me off. It seemed like all Lambos and no substance.
You know what I like a lot more than materialistic things? Knowledge.
But James had said it helped him a lot to grow his business, and I trusted him. So I started, like everyone, probably reading the Russell Brunson books, buying some programs, started connecting with people online, and it turns out I was super wrong. I wanted into this, but a lot of the standard online money making paths just didn't make sense to me from a business modeling perspective. It just seemed super transactional, and I wanted to build a business with enterprise value that produced me free cash flow, and I needed long-term relationships. So I decided to build this kind of hybrid model mixed with the insights that I'd learned growing a 8-figure edtech company. So I decided that I would partner with a couple of formal education edtech companies who were already in my network. I'd leverage my knowledge, my hands-on work with clients. But before I got started, I had to leave. I felt selfish, but it was what I truly wanted. I wanted more control of my own business. I wanted more time and freedom. And like I said, I was living good, but I was still working all day on meetings, driving the team forward. Honestly, I was working most weekends as well. And I wanted to support my family more and start to build the foundations of my own family. And deep down, what mattered to me the most was my desire to build a business. At the time, I needed to prove to myself that I could do it. And it was ego creeping in. I needed to leave the good for the great. And unlike the last few times, which I'd changed directions, this one was really daunting because for the first time, I had a lot to lose. I was walking away from a lot of money on the big exit and a partnership that I didn't only love, but I owed so much of myself to. And leaving Brendan was one of the hardest things. Like, I was nearly in tears after having the conversation with him, but I was confident that this vehicle that I was about to enter into was better for me. I'd mapped it out like a true entrepreneur in notepads and ugly Google Docs, and thankfully I ended up being right. I closed my first client within 5 days. It was for $75,000 per year, which replaced a good portion of my income. The client knew and they trusted me because of my experience within EdTech, a world which we were both in. So I was working with them on the basis of growing their business, which I knew how to do, but I realized to really scale that I needed a team of experts in lead generation. And the universe brought me Jacob, my current business partner. And he's known as some sort of marketing whiz, never had a job before. He was banking 60K a month in his agency at 23 years old, but he hated doing sales and he hated doing client relationships. And I needed help with all things marketing, and I'd experience with sales and building a team. So we decided to meet up for steak dinner in London, and we realized our skills perfectly complemented one another. And Jacob was marketing since he was 14, and I knew I was not going to be the person that was going to be doing all the marketing in this business to drive it forward. Because of the inner work, I'm comfortable not being good at everything. It was my job to attract the best talent as a CEO, and Jacob's the best. So I brought Jacob on to help with a few things marketing, test out the waters for us. And after a month, I knew it would be best if we went all in together. So I offered him 50% of my business, which I literally just set up and wanted the full independence. And it was genuinely the best decision I've ever made. Jacob shut shut down his lead gen agency immediately after he'd seen how much money I was making from just one growth partner deal. It's kind of like, you know, the Wolf of Wall Street scene where Jordan meets Donnie. He's like, you know, show me how much you earn, I'll quit my job immediately.
You show me a pay stub for $72,000 on it, I quit my job right now and I work for you.
It was like one of those scenes. And over the next year, we partnered with 11 7- and 8-figure edtech owners, establishing the growth partner model, and we built a team of killers. And the clients we signed weren't, you know, any old marketing agency clients. They were 12-month contracts, and they were all worth over 100K each. And for a period, I consciously ignored my well-being, balance, and mindfulness, and I went full-on savage mode into building this business. And I suppose the partnership with Jacob gave me massive energy and confidence in each other. Say in SaaS, you can get big valuations, but it takes a lot of investment. In agencies, you can make cash flow, but it's unlikely to build enterprise value. Where the growth partner model, which we created, allowed us to make significant profits whilst building a business that had enterprise value. And during this time, I ended up moving houses twice. One, to be closer to my client, to go all in on getting an excellent case study. Then once I met Jacob, we moved apartments to be closer together in the financial capital in London, looking over Goldman Sachs, because we wanted to make money. And I went all in, and we grew our business to just under 200K per month in 11 months. And we grew our business so quickly because we mixed old school, going for meetings, building relationships, with new school marketing. In parallel to growing our done for you business, before I'd met Jacob, he'd started helping a couple of Dutch guys kind of rebuild their agency. And Jacob was posting on Twitter, just sharing his business insights, and he'd built up a significant following. And we'd no intentions of, you know, coaching at all. We wanted to focus on our done for you model, but Jacob had took them on because, similar to me, he has a real burning desire to help people, and they were very passionate, but they had a lot of doubts about themselves and the business. And when I met Jacob, I said categorically, I do not want to coach, I want to build a business. And I suppose life has a funny way of surprising me all the time. Every time I say I don't want to do it or call something, it ends up happening to me. And Jacob asked me to help him deliver sales help to Sven and Wesley, and we ended up sharing our growth partner model with them because we were like running it, and it literally transformed them lives. They were like minus 700 euros when we met them, and now they're making over 60K per month. And this success with Sven and Wesley made us realize that we had a massive opportunity to help entrepreneurs build wildly profitable businesses whilst building real enterprise value and help improve the quality of their life, you know, help them really enjoy the journey as well, which to me is a massive privilege. And I still love our education growth partner agency, but truthfully, our impact is capped to our niche. So on top of scaling our own business to $197,000 a month, we started also helping other entrepreneurs to grow theirs as well. And with all this going on, I was driving hard and still mindfully ignoring the mindfulness and I suppose also my own needs. My neck and back pain got like very bad. It was debilitating. Like I couldn't sit down for long. I didn't want to travel at all. I couldn't lift weights, and which I thought was caused from like twinging my back during deadlifts, but I was totally wrong. So I had a couple of steroid injections and I ended up getting like a disc replacement. There's a kind of little scar there. And after even the operation, the pain come back and continued. And I actually ended up closing one of our best clients from the hospital bed after surgery, but I didn't know what was causing the pain. I also started getting like weird dry skin around my eyes. Like who gets dry skin on their eyes? And I was eating well, I was exercising daily, I was in good shape, and so it was kind of strange, you know. On the outside I was super healthy, but like stuff was starting to break down. And I was recommended a book and started to explore more the body-mind connection, and this led me to taking it a little bit easier in the business to get to the root cause of these symptoms that I was experiencing, to kind of force me back into the path of mindfulness practice again, which I'm super grateful for. But this time I needed to stop suppressing my emotions to just do more business. And my internal dialogue was like, basically, don't be weak, just get on with it. Sometimes it was even harsher than that. But if I continued on this dialogue, I was going to end up, yeah, rich, but I was going to be in a wheelchair or dead. And I realized the same pattern was repeating itself again. This time the stakes were higher. Like I had people relying on me to pay their salaries, to pay for their mortgage and their children's schools and stuff like that. And I kind of realized that my leverage was not in working 14-hour days, it was making better decisions. So I continued to build out our leadership team to drive the day-to-day of the business forward, to free me up from 99% of all client communications and meetings. So my time was fully freed up so I could focus on other things. And it was quite challenging to let go initially because it had worked for me in the past. It had got me to where I wanted to get to, but I knew to get to the next level I needed to make some changes. And I took a meditation retreat in the Algarve, turned off my phone, went into into mindfulness. So it was a real switch. I was working, 14 hours a day, didn't want to take a holiday building a business. To next week, I was in the middle of the Algarve on a paddleboard, Tuesday, 8 a.m. microdosing magic mushrooms. And I was thinking, like, what? How did this happen? And on the paddleboard, I was kind of laughing at life because I was always living in the future and realized I wanted to be more present. And the trip was just a catalyst for letting go and letting the team of experts drive these things forward that they were well capable of doing. And since I stepped away from the day-to-day, we just had 2 back-to-back months of over $400,000. All this while I've been to Dubai, I've just moved my life there, my business, I just got a villa there. I'm now in Koh Samui for nearly 2 months in Thailand to live in nature. I've been to Mykonos, Morocco, hosted events. And honestly, I couldn't have done that without letting go all the inner work. Oh man, I made so many mistakes on the journey, but the process of actually building a good team, creating relationships with great people, and seeing people's lives truly change is the impact that I was looking for. And I've had to deal with unhappy clients, ex-staff members stealing our offer. I've had personal issues, and I've had personal issues when we had business issues. I had hate online, you name it. But through it all, I'd say as long as you have the confidence and trust in yourself, you can get through anything. You are way stronger than you think, and you probably even recognize. And look, making money's fun, but once you've got enough money that you're not worried about how much a Wagyu steak is, how you make your money and who you do it with become the most important thing for me. And we've hosted events with incredible entrepreneurs in London and Mykonos. We've now got a massive one planned in Dubai, our new home and headquarters. And Dubai will be the next chapter where I lock in again, but this time it'll be on my own growth and contribution for others. And this is just the start of the story. I've left so much out of this that could be valuable to you, so I could just share my origins in a clear and concise way. I wanted to make this channel to share my journey and what I've learned that's helped me build a second business to 400K per month at 28 years old, whilst focusing on living life to the fullest. For me, being an entrepreneur isn't just about making all of the money that you can. It's about having personal freedom and peace of mind to do what you truly want to do in life. If you agree, this channel is definitely for you. This isn't just a personal channel. Of course, I'm going to be sharing a huge amount of business frameworks, experience, and what I'm doing, but I'll also be sharing stuff that most entrepreneurs don't feel comfortable in sharing. This for me is a journey of, yes, making money, but on the other side, it's personal growth, freedom through entrepreneurship to make more money, and also all the challenges that life's going to throw at us and how I'm overcoming them on a week-by-week basis. I hope this story has shown you the real me and is evidence that if I can have health, wealth, and happiness and mess up all of these things, then so can you. So make sure you do subscribe, because I'll be sharing more of the frameworks and the insights that have helped me. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see, and thank you for giving me the privilege to share my story with you. See you in the next video.